This festive season and summer holidays, there's no better time to indulge in Australia's best coffee at Roasting Warehouse. Whether you're in Perth, Brisbane, Athens, or Melbourne, experience the perfect brew crafted with passion. Visit their flagship roastery and HQ in Airport West, where the magic happens, or drop by any of their stunning cafes for not just incredible coffee, but service and a cafe experience like no other. Celebrate this season with Roasting Warehouse.
And it's their leading goal scorer and captain, Stefan Moore.
Joining us today, we've got fan favourite. A very warm welcome to you, Jacko Irvine.
Thanks, mate. Good to see you both.
But going back to obviously St. Pauli, I want to know a little bit about the promotion season.
It was a little bit scary, to be honest. Like, it was a little bit like, next thing you know, it was just like World War Z, just like people coming at you from all angles, like red face and screaming. And I've never not been the person that I am, as a lot of people who have known me most of my career will say. I've been able to do it so openly and publicly and embrace it that way. And
what I guess has been the highlights of your Socceroos journey so far?
For me, the highlight, of course, was Qatar. We put in the absolute maximum that we had, and you could walk away from it with no regrets, which I must say I had a lot of after Russia. The fact that I've never played in the A-League has always felt strange to me. We've kind of always been the noisy neighbours down the road who, you know, it's the punk club. It's part of associated with being grungy, with grinding, with the music scene, with the docks, with the harbour.
Hello guys, and welcome back to Football Friends with Ben and Steph. Today we've got a massive guest in store. We're up bright and early to match the time in Germany. We've got Jacko Irvine on, Steph. Could be our biggest guest, I reckon. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say probably. He's obviously someone that's had an unbelievable career with his club sides, but then the national team, and then also a lot of the stuff that he does off the field. I was on his page the other week, and like the amount of followers that he's got now, and all the photo shoots that he does, he's become a bit of a model on the side. So it's probably not something you ever would have pictured him doing. It's not obviously in the traditional sense where he's maybe modelling for Balenciaga, but a lot of football retro jerseys, and yeah, he's just really embraced, I guess, the person that he is, and I'm excited to hear from him, because we both played with him in the junior national teams, and he's someone obviously that's, you know, kept improving, kept getting better, and going from strength to strength, and to end up in the Bundesliga now. Probably doesn't get the attention it deserves. You know, Premier League's the number one league, but I think that's all a lot of Australians really talk about. But the Bundesliga is such a top league, and for him to be there and to be captain of the side is massive.
Yeah. It really is. Like, to be honest, what he's doing at the moment, you can't really get much higher than that unless you're, you know, maybe at a team in one of those leagues that's competing for silverware or playing in Europe. But he really is at the very, very top of his game, and then 70 odd caps now for the Socceroos as well. So we'll stop blowing smoke up his ass before he even gets in here. Let's just get him in. Joining us today, we've got fan favourite Socceroo, captain of St. Pauli in the Bundesliga, someone that myself and Steph have both had the pleasure of playing with quite a long time ago now. Interested to see and hear all your stories and how it's gone from them, but a very warm welcome to you, Jacko Irvine.
Thanks, mate. Good to see you both.
Yeah, it's been a while. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about with your career. It's just gone up and up and up. But I guess firstly, what we try and do is really take it back to the grassroots. Obviously, being Australian, a lot of kids or a lot of parents, I'm sure, that listen love to hear about the stories of how players got to where they got to. Everyone's story is different, but what was it for you, I guess, that made you fall in love with the game? And then where did football start?
Well, really from my dad and my granddad. My dad's Scottish, and my grandfather, my late grandfather, was Dutch. And it was really them that kind of didn't really need to push me, but kind of were the ones that gave me a ball when I was a kid and kind of encouraged me to go down to have a look at that, you know, because everyone at school played footy, of course, in Melbourne. But yeah, it was really from there. And then it was my granddad who used to come and like pick me up from school and like take me down to down to Ringwood City, down to the club, and like to go to training a couple of nights a week. And that was it really. I was about 5 or 6, I think, when I started like training, and then it was just obsessed, just absolutely obsessed. Couldn't not have a ball at my feet 24/7 at home or everywhere.
Yeah.
That was like the way in anyway. That was like the kind of the
Yeah.
one that opened. That's how like the door opened for me, I guess.
As you kind of went through the years, because you went overseas very, very young at only
Yeah.
16, what age was it when you started to kind of take it more seriously, or was it not until you went when you were 16?
Yeah, it was probably then. Like you always dream, always played with that being the ultimate ambition, but I don't think you ever really. I don't know. It's never seen as realistic in anyone else's eyes, I guess, when you're at school and everyone's like, oh yeah, but like, what are you actually going to do? You know what I mean? There's no like real scene as a real career or pathway to it, especially in suburban Melbourne. But yeah, that was like, it probably wasn't until it was actually the year before I went, when I was 16, when I was 15, first time I went over to go on a trial. And I went over to Blackburn Rovers, and that was like the kind of first window when I went into like a professional academy and trained with them for a week, and it was like, oh, like these guys aren't like loads better than me, eh? Like,
Mm.
like I'm actually all right. And then yeah, I came back and trained a bit with the Victory youth team, like in between, and then I got the chance to go over again at 16 and have a prop like, and then got to get lucky a bit as well. And I suppose the other thing you don't really realize at that age as well is the biggest luck you got to have is you got to have the resources. And I'm so lucky that my family had the time and the resources to be able to help me like pursue it, you know what I mean, to go over and actually have a go at that, because for a lot of people that's a massive barrier that they wouldn't be able to get over at a young age.
Yeah, definitely. Like I've got a little one now. He's just turned 1, and like
Mm,
I left. Me and Ben were the same. We left at what 15 to go to the AIS. You left at 16. Like,
hmm
I couldn't imagine him coming at 15 or 16 and saying like, "I want to leave." Like as a parent, you want to do anything for your kid, but the last thing you want is for them to leave. Like that's normally when they should be at home. You're looking
hmm
after them, and obviously for them to do that is of course what they're gonna do. But it must have been heartbreaking for them. But now seeing how your
Yeah.
career's panned out, it's obviously all worth it. But how did the trials, I guess, come about, and why did you choose to go down that path rather than, probably staying at Melbourne Victory if there was the opportunity to do that?
Yeah, that was a kind of funny time, that moment where they kind of crossed over, where I'd just been like I was playing for Frankston Pines in State League One, like in the first team at 16, and it was from there that I got pulled into train with the Victory youth team, and I'd only probably been there, I don't know, maybe like 2 months when then the opportunity to go back over to Celtic came up. It was at Frankston Pines, a guy called Tommy O'Halloran, who his son Michael, or his nephew Michael O'Halloran actually came out and played for Melbourne City
Oh
for a
yeah.
bit, but people probably remember. But it was the O'Halloran family. His dad, Michael, works in in the academy at Celtic, and it was via that link that he said, "I've got this player. I think you should have a look at him." And I was going over that in that December to visit some family on my dad's side, and it just kind of worked out well that it was a good time to kind of do it. And listen, it's funny. I often look back in hindsight and wonder if Victory had maybe taken that moment a little bit more seriously. I wasn't actually technically allowed to sign a contract because of my age in that time with the under 21s rule, and there was sorts of barriers. But I'm often fascinated what I would have thought about if that opportunity had kind of come at the same time. But just that was just the way it went, and that door kind of closed and another one opened, and off I went.
Yeah, it's crazy. Look, you could have maybe been a victory cult hero like Archie Thompson instead you're playing in the Bundesliga. But talk to us about that time at Celtic. Obviously, when you got there, obviously you were there for 2 years, and then you made your debut against Hibs,
Yeah.
which was in 2012. How was that playing for Celtic. I remember speaking to you actually when we were at the under-20 World Cup qualifiers, I think when you just kind of played your first game, and you said we drew the game. And I remember you were telling me about how, I suppose, full on the Celtic fans were in terms of social media and, copying it a bit. How did you kind of deal with that pressure at such a young age?
Yeah, it's just ruthless. Like there's certain clubs like there's expectation in football across the board. Fans want to see the best football. They want to see results. They want to see young players, but they want to see big signings. But they want to see you use the academy. But they also, it's like it's all of those things at once. And Celtic is definitely that melting pot of wanting to see everything all at once. And I came in at a time where we had a lot of other good young players. Obviously, my centre midfield partner, Callum McGregor's an absolute club legend now and club captain, and is one. I think he's going to break records there for most trophies. It's just insane. But yeah, when my opportunity came, I remember I got subbed in at half time for Victor Wanyama at Celtic Park against Hibs. And the funny old thing, like I didn't play particularly terribly. Like we didn't, and it wasn't like an absolute Chernobyl of a debut, but we ended up drawing. Actually, even like the goal was quite comical. It was a long ball over the top, and Fraser Forster flying off his line, and the defender was looking at the ball, and they ran into each other, and the guy, and we drew 2-2. And you often think like if that can happen, you win the game 2-1. Yeah, okay, you've not set the world on fire on your debut, but you've come in, won the game. It's steady enough, and maybe it looks a little bit different. Um, the circumstances of the game, I got a bit of grief, and even from Neil Lennon gave me an absolute hairdryer after the game as well.
No
And
way.
yeah, unfortunately, that was my one and only 45 minutes in the hoops. But I'm still very connected to the club. I would probably still call myself a fan, and it's like it's tough when it doesn't work out for you. But at the end of the day, you can reflect on it whichever way you want. But I was nowhere near ready for that level, for Champions League, for competing every week for trophies at that level. At that time, I was nowhere. I wasn't ready for that. And as you say, maybe if you get a bit more time, it could have developed differently. But I think on reflection, it probably wasn't the time anyway.
It's incredible, isn't it? Like the ruthlessness of that, and obviously it can break some players. We kind of chat about this with every single guest that goes overseas, and the difference from Australia is here. You get 10 chances because yes, teams want to win, but there's no promotion, there's no relegation. It's not life and death. Where over there, it's a completely different thing. And being from Australia, we live such a relaxed lifestyle. So going into that must have been extremely challenging. How did you find that? Like, let's say, I want you to take us through like the aftermath of that. So you've got smashed in the game afterwards by the fans, by your gaffer. How do you deal with that in the weeks and months after that to kind of keep your confidence and to not drop into a bad headspace?
Yeah, listen, it is difficult. It's as you said, I'm sure even from your guys' own experience, when you have to bounce back as a young player, it's not always easy. And some players are blessed with that beautiful gift of just not really caring too much about what anyone else thinks or whatever, however you want to put it. But um, I've always been competitive, and I've always been my own probably harshest critic. And probably after that time, I'd probably been on the bench maybe I think the first 3 or 4 games of that season, and then that game had kind of led into that, and all of a sudden you're in the stand, and then the week after that you maybe you're back training with the dash your confidence a little bit. You know what I mean? When you've done a full preseason, especially in those early months as it gets into September, October, and the Champions League starts to roll around, and then you just kind of get pushed out completely, and then you're kind of in a position where it's like, how do you fight your way back? You're back in, and at that time, at the club, they had so many options, like guys like Joe Ledley, obviously the captain, Scott Brown, Ki Sung Yong, Victor Wanyama, like just Baram, like they all went on to play Premier League, a lot of these guys, and they were all kind of, that was the Celtic made it to the League. I think it's the last time they got out of the group. That year, you were just competing with the top guys. And as I said, I just probably wasn't ready probably for that challenge. And um, in the with the youth national team in around the November of that year, I ended up doing my ankle, and I was out for 3 months anyway. So it kind of put me into the back burner for the rest of that season anyway. So yeah, listen, I had that little spell probably then, and then the following pre-season when I came back, where I thought I was close. But other than that, yeah, the gap just kind of felt too wide for me to bridge at that time in my career.
You that's it's obviously great learnings and great to, I suppose, hear the mental side, because we've all been there as players when you feel like you're getting that big kind of breakthrough. Yes, this is my moment. I have to take it. But then also you've got the nerves and the fear of maybe what if it doesn't go right. So we've all been there as players probably a lot of times as well, where it's gone the other way and you've had an absolute blinder, and then you're going, oh fuck, how good's this? But sometimes it doesn't work out like that. I think it's pretty shit from the gaffer to absolutely smash a player that's just played his first game as well. But obviously that's the cutthroat nature of Celtic. If we're going on, you had quite a few. You had a few loans, with Killy and Ross County, both in Scotland. Ross County ended up taking you on permanently, and then you moved on to England, and we'll kind of go on to that, where you signed for Burton and kind of hit the ground running. Only spent 1 year there, had an absolute worldie.
Yeah, yeah. Listen, after that, it all goes so quick. As I said, the next season you come back from that injury, you get sent on loan. An absolute the nightmare season was Killy. That was when I went on loan. I was lucky. I played a lot of football at a young age at a good level, but I had an absolute nightmare. And I got back to Celtic the following pre-season, and like I was out of the picture at the first team. I was 20 years old, I think 21 maybe. I just played my first full year in SPL, Scottish Premier League, and had an absolute nightmare. And I ended up signing for Ross County on deadline day on loan, who were bottom of the league, 7 games without a win. Like, in where a lot of people know where Ross County is now, because a lot of Australians have followed suit going up there. Nizzy's there at the minute. And it was a dire situation, but that club out of the wilderness basically in that time. And then I did a year there, and then the following season when the signed me on permanent was when I kicked on properly. And then the year at Burton was an absolute whirlwind. I had a couple of options when I left Ross County, which is again a bit of a sliding doors moment. I kind of had two concrete offers. One was Burton Albion, this really tiny club in England that have just gone back to back promotions, League Two to the Championship in like that. It's tiny budget, I came in as the record for 250 grand ever in the club's history, the Championship, you know what I mean? I think Wolves signed Ruben Neves for 40 million that year and in the Championship, and I was the top signing at 250 grand. And the other one was an opportunity to go to Belgium, which would have been again like a totally different cultural move and maybe a different career path. But I was determined I wanted to go down south and have a crack at England in the Championship. And
Yeah, incredible. What would you then say like the jump was to the Championship compared to obviously playing in Scotland? Like I'm assuming it was similar football, but was it a lot more competitive going to the Champ?
Yeah, it is different. Definitely higher quality. Just not probably individually massively different in terms of the individual quality, but in particular the players at the front of the pitch I think was the biggest factor. Those X factor players that decide the games at that level, that was the biggest difference, and that's purely financial. That's just because they can afford to bring in players of that quality, as we still see now, and as Ben, you'll know from your time there, that's probably the main goal of a lot of players, especially outside the top 3-4 teams in Scotland, is to try and get that move to the Championship, to try and have that opportunity to make it to the promised land.
Yeah. So you enjoyed a really good season I think if my stats are correct, 44 games, 11 goals, which is a pretty good return for a central midfielder.
Yeah.
And then you got bought
Never to be
again
seen
by.
again, those numbers.
I've seen it. To be fair, there's been a few stints throughout your career where there's been some good goal scoring returns. You do pop up, but Hull City wanted to get you in. They did get you in. You spent 3 years there, and that was a pretty, I suppose, big part or big chunk of your career as well, where you spent a bit of time, and then it all kind of came to an end during COVID. Talk to us about that kind of strange time and COVID and how it kind of affected you, because you were 6 months after Hull City without a club. Obviously, football had started again, and you were without a club. Was that a tough period for you?
Yeah, it was absolutely bizarre. After playing 3 years at Hull and being in that last season, that COVID season, I was vice captain of the club, one of the longest serving players there at the time. There'd been a lot of turnover. And it'd kind of been just pre-COVID, we'd been kind of starting to ask the question about what was happening with my contract at the end of that season. I had an option for a further year, which I was keen to take and stay at the club. And, I just met my now wife, who is from Hull, and, I was keen, to make that happen. And obviously COVID came along, and the club just made a series of basically financial decisions where they were looking at probably the period when I signed, which was I signed the year they came down from the Premier League. So we were probably looking at, there was probably not many players from that time which they brought in during parachute payments and this kind of thing. So they kind of started to move the club into a different direction. I did open the door to renegotiate terms in terms of if they wanted to reduce salaries and blah, 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 all that stuff. But the club had basically made a decision that they wanted to, that was kind of my time coming to an end. And it was really disappointing and sad, I guess, the way it ended, because the season hadn't quite kicked back off again when this all happened. There were still 9 games to go. And then, I didn't play in those 9 games because, I was told that was the end of my time with the club. And there was a big fallout with, fans, when myself and the captain at the time were both in the same boat. And, the club ended up getting relegated after they lost the last 9 games of the season, or 8 of the last 9 games, and got relegated. And yeah, it was an ugly time. And, at that point, I think I was 27, a national team player, played at a World Cup, vice captain over 150 games in the Championship. Thought the world was going to be my oyster as a free agent, you know what I mean? And football just is a funny old game, and you end up in, I had some problems with my representatives at the time, and again, thinking that probably there was going to be more options than there were, but, finding out in hindsight that there probably were options there that weren't quite known to me. And listen, it's funny, you go from, as I say, 2 years before that, playing in a World Cup, to running in a dog park in East Yorkshire on your own for 6 months. It's quite the turn, and that was probably one of the toughest times of my career. I was very lucky to have the support of my partner, and to kind of guide me through it, because if I didn't have that, who knows what would have happened.
Yeah, I remember actually doing a few sessions with you. Well, probably shouldn't actually say this. I don't think we were allowed to be doing the sessions. I remember doing a few sessions with you we were social distancing in Melbourne, and I remember talking to you, and you were kind of explaining about I can't even remember exactly what it was about Hull and the insurance that they wanted.
Yeah.
You were able to keep training, but they weren't going to cover you on insurance or something. Mm-hmm. And it was just kind of bizarre, to be honest, and disappointing the way it ended. But obviously, you ended up getting through it, and obviously that's a shit time, and COVID was a shit time, and clubs probably got a little bit scared as well, even with players that had the runs on the board like yourself. But Hibs ended up throwing you a bone, and you went, made the most of it. How did it kind of come about, and why did you decide to go back to Scotland?
Yeah, like that insurance thing. Basically, they wanted me to play those last 9 games basically out of contract, and wouldn't guarantee me that if I got injured or something happened in those 9 games, that they would then extend that year in my contract. They would just basically ask me to just play for free, which is just like wild. Anyway, it was nuts. And then, as I said, the time kind of came. I made some adjustments in the way I probably, like a lot of people did, to reevaluate priorities in your life. And as you say, COVID was a much tougher time for a lot of people than it was for footballers. But in a short career, it does really, that time makes you reevaluate what you actually want out of your career and your life. And I had some excellent conversations with my now representative, who was we decided to go on a different path. And Hibs was, when it came around, was a really obvious and natural step for me. A league I know, had played in a lot, a league that knows me, I guess, and a club that was willing to place trust in a guy because I actually hadn't played in 9 months because this league stopped in March.
Yeah.
And this was then got to January, and I went back into training in the June when were allowed to train again, but then I didn't play an actual game. So I was 9 months without playing a game when I arrived in Hibs in the January, and again, an ambitious club with high expectations, and I was very, very fortunate. The amazing people there that gave me the opportunity to kind of rebuild what I want, that part of my career.
Yeah, for sure. Did you like throughout that period? Obviously, like it's very tough. Like you've probably gone from thinking exactly like you said, I'm going to have all these options, to then nothing. I know I don't want you to go into the specifics with the agent and representative, but like you said about potentially some deals that were there. Why do you think in this industry that can happen sometimes with agents that maybe they don't present a deal? Like what benefit are they getting from that?
Well, the benefit they'll be getting is that there probably isn't a benefit for them from those deals. That's the short and blunt of it. Things, at the end of the day, especially in big agencies, they're money machines, and they want to place players at clubs that's most beneficial to them. That's the reality. They're not really worried about the path that you're on, the journey of you as a person, and where you want to navigate that. Whatever that looks like, it's not really seen as a priority. And I was definitely probably fell into the trap of that, especially in the early months of that time when a couple of things did come my way, and you think, oh no, that's maybe not enough money, or it's maybe not the level that I want. And at that time, and you have to live with those decisions as a player as well, because it doesn't always go exactly as you think it will. But the thing is, if you don't have there is a level of trust there, which is that your career can sometimes be in the hands of someone else in that moment. They make those decisions that you don't have the power to make those calls yourself. And if you're not aligned on what you want, then as you said, you can end up in situations like I've been in, and a lot of players have been in their careers, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's
made the right call with your now representation, which is also my representation, Simon. So he's obviously, if you're listening, Simon, good on you. It's obviously worked out well. Let's go on to that next chapter. St. Pauli, when they've come knocking, what was it? Was it obvious from the word go that I'm going there? I have to take this up.
Yeah, well, Hibs. It was tough to leave Hibs, to be honest. They did offer me something again after the 6 months. We finished third, which is the highest position the club's finished in 17 years. We made the Scottish Cup final, which we unfortunately lost, and the semi-final of the League Cup as well. It was a really successful season for the club, and it was a tough moment to kind of leave. I didn't end up ever getting to play in front of the fans because of that moment. And but I think just because of that, what had happened over that previous year, and the conversation I had with my partner, the opportunity to really have a total cultural and footballing change was really what I probably craved at that moment. British football I love for so many reasons, but I really wasn't probably feeling as fulfilled as I potentially have found now that football can be, when you put yourself in the right place. And as I say, it was not by luck, it was by design, by the people I work with, by the conversations with people within football. And when I met with St. Pauli over Zoom, as you did at that time, when I spoke with the club, it was a very easy decision for me in a quick conversation to understand that this was the kind of place where not only would I thrive on the pitch, but a chance to live a different kind of life, which, you know, I've probably always felt was missing from my career in the UK.
Yeah, well, that's I guess those sliding door moments, and things can go, like you spoke at the start, you know, when you're talking about whether you went on trial to Blackburn and then Celtic, and if victory went harder for you. There's all these moments that obviously are so small at the time, but they change your whole career. And obviously going 6 months, 9 months without playing or without a club led you to Hibs, and then led you to obviously ending up in Germany at St. Pauli. So as much as it was probably hard, it was probably a blessing in disguise, because now it seems like you've, obviously, like you said, on the field, you're doing unbelievably well. You're now captain of the club after getting promotion, which we'll touch on. But off the field, you seem like you're, I guess, embracing the person that you are. You're in a city that you're thriving in. So talk us a little bit about that, because obviously people here in Australia probably never been, some people have probably never been over to Germany, but talk us, I guess, through, where you are, what it's like, and why you've enjoyed it so much.
Yeah, it's for anyone who doesn't really know St. Pauli and Hamburg and this kind of the cultural aspect of what football is in this community. It's St. Pauli is like a suburb basically within Hamburg. Hamburg's a massive city. It's the third biggest city in Germany. I think it's the 11th biggest city and 12th biggest city in Europe. It's a massive place, and we had that Hamburg Hausbau, a household, club across Europe and most of the world after playing Champions League and, being, the massive club that they are. And we're kind of always been the noisy neighbours down the road who, it's the punk club. It's part of a community down here by the harbour, which has always been associated with being grungy, with grinding, with the music scene, with the docks, with the harbour. It's all kind of intrinsically linked to the football itself, and that's why it's, the hard socialist values of the club and everything that comes with that is heavily politically driven, and it's gained a cult following around the world over the years, not for any footballing success, that's for sure, but more for what the club stands for. And as I said, it was a lot of that aspect of it which drew me here. Of course, the footballing project was the number one thing, because you want to be part of a successful team. But when you combine that with everything else, and as I say, it's the kind of place where not only are you accepted to, do whatever you want, but be the person you want to be, but also encouraged and actively encouraged to kind of explore that side, and that's so rare in football, where individualism and any kind of expression can be so easily squashed by people saying, oh, he's not focused on football, he's not thinking about the game, he's not, his head's not in it, he's thinking about music or fashion or whatever else it is. And this is the kind of place where, as I say, that kind of train of thought is actively encouraged, and that was a huge part of what drew me here.
Yeah, you obviously embody it. That's why you're the skipper. So they obviously also love what you're doing, and you love what the club can give you. Is that why you've now gone into been able to go into the things off the field, like the FIFA Pro, like the PFA, and being on the board for these kinds of organisations now?
I think it kind of went hand in hand. I think, as of course, I've got the club to thank in the sense of opening a kind of door to me. Like, I've always been that person. I've never probably shied. I've never not been the person that I am, as a lot of people who have known me most of my career will say, but probably not to a point where I've been able to do it so openly and publicly and embrace it that way. And as I say, that part of me, and especially as my relationship has blossomed and I've got a partner who also encourages me to do these things and live my life a certain way, and that is all kind of tied into working with the unions and being a leader at my club and with the national team. I guess it all kind of works hand in hand together, and there's no real one thing that's driven me into kind of where I am now. It's all kind of happened organically and together. Mm-hmm. And I'm very grateful that being the president of the PFA is a absolutely massive honour to try and play some small role in helping shape the game in Australia and for the national teams, and the amazing work that they do, and being on the player council for the global union in FIFA Pro is it's a bit more of a figurehead position, not as much actual work, but there's important stuff to be done, and the game is constantly changing, and to be a part of those conversations is, I find, absolutely fascinating, and to learn from the people who have the power to really shape the game and make it how we want it to be.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's great. Obviously, we've been part of the PFA since, I guess when you're a young kid, 16, 17-year-old, we had Simon Colosimo Schumer back in the day and just said, just sign these papers, mate. And we're like, oh, fuck, all right, no worries.
That's basically, that's how it starts, mate. That's what it is. It's just like, trust me, you want to do this, mate. Yeah. That's shit all over as well.
And it's one of those things though that like now, like obviously being like involved in it here, like I think through COVID was probably the best time for me, because we actually were having such big decisions here in Australia with the A-League. It was probably the only time where the delegates and the club representatives here actually jumped on so many meetings and were making these big decisions. But it does open your eyes up, because you're then chatting with the CEO of the A-Leagues and different club owners and certain things that you're probably not privy to as a player, and you're understanding, like our livelihoods are actually up to these people. So we probably should take more of an interest in this side of things, because they determine a lot of our pay conditions, and if we're going to get paid, and if things go to shit like COVID, we need to know that these are the type of people that are going to back us, or they're going to throw us to the side and not care about us. And some clubs certainly did that through COVID here in Australia. So it's great to see you obviously a part of it. I think all the players would be very happy with you being there as the Don at the top. But going back,
it sound like a dictatorship, like I've just taken over, come in and taken over as president.
He's determining my pay if I get paid this month. So. But going back to obviously St. Pauli, I want to know a little bit about the promotion season. I think that's got to be, I'm sure, one of the biggest highlights. And obviously from afar, me just seeing the photos you were putting up and different players, like it seemed like the celebrations were ridiculous. So can you talk us through, I guess, how that season kind of went, and then the promotion itself, and then the parties that followed that?
Yeah, again, it was the most intense year of football that I've ever experienced. We had a young manager who's a week older than me, which is, bizarre in itself. And obviously a lot of people will be following him now, Brighton, Fabian Hertzler. And it was his first job. He came in the December the year before. He'd been our coach for 6 months. He came in the January of the year before and won his first 10 games in a row. And I think we won 13 of our last 17 games of the season before. And we went from fourth bottom to just missing out on promotion the year before because of the crazy run. And he just had such faith in us, but was the most demanding coach I've ever worked with. He was absolutely ruthless, and he laid down the gauntlet to us from day one. We sat as a group and we talked about what do we want to achieve, what do we want to do, and it's one of those ones in football. Sometimes people are scared to say it out loud. It's like, oh, maybe playoffs, and if we have a good run, we'll see what happens. And no one wants to lay it down. And we said champions. We said champions. We don't want to go up. We want to win the league. That's all we believe we were good enough to do. And we thought that's big clubs in the league. Hertha Berlin, who you're wearing right now, Schalke, Hamburg, teams with bigger budgets, bigger traditions, Nuremberg, Kaiserslautern, Fortuna Düsseldorf, but no, that was how we saw it, and we had the belief in ourselves, and But that was it. From day one, we set the standards. That's, if you want to be champions, then every day is, you behave like that. And the training was so intense. The meetings, tactical meetings, classroom sessions every day, and we developed a style and a way and a mentality that was like nothing I've experienced in the game before. And we never, we had a few early setbacks. Well, I think we went 3 or 4 games in the first 5 without scoring, like 3 0-0 draws in the first 4 or something. It wasn't always smooth, but we were so stable in our way of what we were trying to do, and so committed to it. And then throughout the course of the season, it never felt like we weren't going to get there. And we had a couple of big hiccups towards the end, when it got a little bit scary, but ultimately we sealed it at home in the second last game of the season. And it was, the club's actually never been champions before. They've had 5 or 6 promotions to the Bundesliga in their history, but never done it as the top dogs to win the league. And the pitch invasion on the second last day when we actually won the league is one of the most surreal moments of my life. It was a little bit scary, to be honest. Like, it was a little bit like, all right, this is like, they all lined the pitch, because we were 3-0 up in about the 80th minute, so they all climbed the barrier and they all got over, like the stewards just opened the gates, because obviously they want to avoid any dangerous situations of crushing at the front, so they just opened the gates. So everyone was just on the pitch basically, and like guys like standing on the line as you're like still playing the last 10 minutes and just like getting ready, and it's so surreal. And then obviously the whistle goes and you throw your head back and you have that like moment of like, yes, we've done it. And then next thing you know, it was just like World War Z, just like people coming at you from all angles, like red faced and screaming and coming at you. And then it was just absolutely crazy. And then the next week was just a blur of madness.
I got goosebumps, man. I got goosebumps. That's unreal, honestly. Like when you talk about the he laid down the gauntlet, Hertzler, because obviously he's now gone on to Brighton, and I think everyone's kind of now understanding what a manager he is. But was it, in terms of training, was a certain standard, or was it just everything across the board? Like, all right, well, if this is what you want, like, okay, there's one thing saying it, but we're going to fucking train like this every day. This is what we're going to do tactically. Was it just like really hard physical training, or was it just everything across the board?
Everything, mate. The mental aspect of it was equally as tough as the physical. Listen, the physical aspect on the pitch was not that we were doing crazy long sessions or crazy drills or anything. It was his way was that as soon as you stepped on that pitch, you're at work. Like, there was no, do a little warm up and have a little touch of the ball, a little box 5v2. No, it was like you were in from the second you were on the grass, and it was like we do these passing drills like that. The most football and at any level will do is a little warm up. If you didn't play on the front foot, if you didn't take your touch forward, if you were, if you weren't switched on from second one, he was on you. Like, that was his level. But it was every aspect of it, mate. We brought in a guy at the club for the season who was his title was team coach, and it wasn't like a sports psychologist. He's a specialist in like team dynamics, and he's literally, his job was to just watch our behavior as players, as a group, analyze it, and try and help us correct it for things that he didn't like or didn't think would be beneficial for the team. And we would have like classroom sessions once a week with this guy, where we would sit and talk about like our feelings about the football, the training, the pressures, what it was, how, about each other, about the dynamic of the team, guys that were playing, guys that weren't playing, our relationship to that. It was just work. Everything was work. We were just constantly trying to make ourselves like this into something, this like team that nothing would stand in our way kind of thing. And one of the big things we said was about not having regrets, and to have no regrets, you have to speak to each other and come into conflict. And that was another thing that we encouraged throughout the year, was to come into conflict, to demand things of your teammates, accountability, things that, and that's not just effing and blinding someone off on the training pitch or any game, but that's genuine, like, if you don't believe that someone's pulling their weight on, off the pitch, whatever that is. So, yeah, we pushed each other in every way, not just physically, mentally, emotionally. It was incredibly demanding, and you could see the way we celebrated, like, it wasn't just like a team that had done something. It was, we'd earned it, and we'd done it together, and it was like that's why it was so special, I guess. And you create those kinds of moments in football not very often. When you do it really as a unit, there was nothing, no one's strayed from like that kind of vision, that like center that we'd set from the start, which was to be champions, and we helped every time someone felt like we felt that someone was drifting from that, then we pulled them back in, as a group. And that's why a team that was probably, we had individual players that massively performed on the pitch, but I really believe that it was all the other aspects of it that were why we were able to do it.
That's incredible. Like, I think, to be honest, we could probably spend another 4 hours just talking about him as a manager and the stuff. Like, I'm so interested in this side of it, and you're obviously extremely fortunate to have worked with Ange Postecoglou for one, for Herzler. That these coaches that you work with change the way you view football, the way you view life as well. And I guess the last thing on this before obviously we get onto the Socceroos, and then we can let you go. When you're talking about bringing players back in and you're having these conflicts, was that player driven, or was that more so driven from obviously him being the coach or the manager, and he's then giving you the license to do it? Like, how did that actually work? Because that's where it can become quite difficult, because I've always viewed it, the coach, the manager, they're the ones that are at the top. They can say anything and get away. But as a player, if you're driving too much, sometimes other players can be like, well, fuck this guy. Who's he to say that? So that's what I'm interested to see how that played out.
I think it was one of his greatest qualities as a coach, and I hope it's something he carries with him in his career, was that he gave us the space to criticize each other, to be open with each other, but also with him. Like, a lot of these meetings, the staff would be in as well. And that dynamic where, you don't want to say anything to the gaffer. You don't want us to talk about the training. You don't want to say anything. You don't want to put your chance of playing at risk. But everyone worked towards it. We created a space where, like, that was not seen as being, condescending or insulting. It was seen as just, no, we all want this. We're all, if we think there's a different way or a better way, then I have to say it. And maybe we disagree and maybe we don't do it. But if I don't say it, then I'll never know if maybe he thinks, oh yeah, that's actually not a bad idea. And he created this environment where, as I say, we could come into these conflicts and resolve them and come out better, rather than, and listen, you need a guy. We had a coach who was specialized in this, who would like help us through that dynamic. But that was probably what he did mostly, was he allowed that space for us with him and with each other to resolve it and come out the other side stronger.
Yeah, wow. That's amazing. I think that's so important and so understated and underestimated, especially in football, that mental side and why teams tick. And yeah, it's great on the weekend to go out there and you want to win games, and every single team wants to win games, but what are we doing throughout the week? What are we doing every day to make sure we're setting a standard? And obviously having the resources is the first thing to be able to bring in a coach like that. And not every team is in that position, but I think for teams that are and want to be at that top level, that's a great way to start. Just going on and touching quickly on this year, how has it been, the transition now to the Bundesliga? Obviously, you talked about a club that had a smaller budget in the S2E11 Bundesliga. Now you're in the top league. It must be an even massive jump again.
Yeah, it's enormous, mate. The standard is just incredible. The actual general play of the games, I would say, it's a similar jump from Scotland to England, right, from second league to first league. It's, there are the Bayern Munichs and the Borussia Dortmunds and the Leipzigs and the Leverkusens that sit kind of in that different category. But generally, there's not so much between the teams except for, incredible quality in the final third, and that just real ruthless edge that that teams have, and physicality, the speed in this league is like nothing I've ever seen before. It's actually unbelievable, and the physical demand is every week so it's through the roof. Like you have to go through the roof every week to just to be competitive. And yeah, it's been a tough transition for a lot of us. Most of the teams never played at this level before. At the moment we've done enough to we're keeping our head above water, but we know that the longer the season goes on, you've got to keep improving, and we believe that we've got the capabilities to do it. Obviously, we're working with a more modest we're a more modest club within this, so we know what the resources that are available to us. But the players that got us here and the ones that are still doing it out there every week, we know that we can do it together. That's for sure. But yeah, it's really tough, especially sometimes when you look at a run of fixtures and you look at the next game, you think, buddy, where do the points come? So yeah, listen, it's amazing, but yeah, it's incredibly difficult. That's for sure. But this is what you want. This is what I've always kind of thrived for, asked for in my career. And at 31, to be finally have the chance to play in a top 5 league and test yourself at this level every week. It's if it doesn't give you energy and give you the desire to just keep pushing, then nothing will.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's extremely well said. Of course, it's difficult in those moments, but as a young boy growing up in Melbourne, you would have dreamed of that. So how can you complain about coming up against Bayern Munich and chasing shadows around? You just got to enjoy every moment of it. And going on to the Socceroos, 72 caps now. You're one of the more senior players. You've been there for a number of years and seen different coaches come through. What I guess has been the highlights of your Socceroos journey so far?
76, I think it is. Just
is it?
Just
Fucking, it's not updated.
No, it hasn't updated yet. Maybe. Yeah. No, listen. It's been, if this moment in my domestic career has been obviously the highest moment in that way, my Socceroos journey has been the most enjoyable part of my career. That's for sure. It's been amazing to be a part of a team that I've seen change through a number of coaches, through different pathways, but never really change in its core of what the team means and what it is. It's a special group, and for me, the highlight, of course, was Qatar. That was like what I kind of explained earlier about that feeling after getting promoted, that satisfaction of knowing that everything that you'd put into it, you had got the rewards for, was the way. Maybe not in terms of rewards, because we would have liked to have gone further, but in terms of the satisfaction of knowing that we put in the absolute maximum that we had, and you could walk away from it with no regrets, which I must say I had a lot of after Russia. That feeling of something was missing, and after Qatar that feeling was absolutely not there. And I hope there's going to be more of them to come, but for now, that was definitely been the highlight so far.
Yeah, well, with the obviously we can talk about so much, but just currently with the Socceroos and the current changes of coach, obviously the qualifying at the moment. How are you finding it? How has it been? And does it kind of weigh on you the pressure of the qualifying phase of obviously representing the country? I'm not asking this to kind of get an answer. I'm asking this more as a human, because when I sometimes look at some of the players, maybe for the Socceroos or in the qualifiers, and people are so quick to go, oh, they're playing shit football, they're not scoring, what's going on, why is it like that? But I'm looking going, well, fuck me, I'm a footballer and these guys are at the top, that's why they're playing for the national team. Now, if they're a little bit nervous, then anyone would be like that. Well, why is that? Do you guys feel that pressure from the pub?
Of course it's pressure. Talking, as you said, but you're talking about top level international football. There is pressure to perform, to get results. It's international football can be a funny thing sometimes, because I think when the results come, of course people will ask questions of the performance, but it's not until there may be those two things start to drift apart, that then the real questions are asked. And listen, the results we've had, especially in the last few 2 or 3 games, have probably not been reflective of as well as we've played. I think in the past, when we didn't get the results, you could turn around and say we were nowhere near it. Whereas I look at especially this last round of games, and I'd say we probably deserve much more than we've got. But we're on a new part of the journey, and what I will say is the players absolutely have total belief in what we're doing is not only the right way, but is the way that will continue for us to grow. We needed a change. I think football, you can't stand still. And as much as what we'd done had brought us great success over that period, as we talk around Qatar, and we're a kick of the ball away from the semi-finals of the Asian Cup, and it's but I think the time was ready for us to go in a new direction and to grow and change, and I can see it and I can feel it, the energy in the team that we're on that path. Although, as I say, the last couple of results probably haven't put us where we want to be, but we are still in that second place in the group. We are in the position. It is in our hands, in our control, and everybody has total faith in what we're trying to do, and that we will achieve what we ultimately want to, which is automatic qualification.
Yeah, and I think I look at it and I understand from the fans' perspective. They just want success. They just want you to play like fucking Barcelona. Like what you were saying at the start, they want you to fucking play young kids. They want you to play old players that they like. They want to fucking qualify and they want to win the World Cup. That's just how fans are. Is it all realistic? Probably not. But at the same time, that's the reason why it's the best game in the world, because people are so passionate about it and they care so much. I think the minute that they stop asking questions and stop criticising is probably a worrying moment here in Australia, because that's showing that people don't care. Because even if you're at the top, they're going to complain about something. It's like I look at Arteta now with Arsenal. I'm an Arsenal fan, we went from being shit to now contending for it. People complain when we drop 2 points, where before, if we were sitting in second place, it was the best thing in the world. So it's all about that perspective of it, and you're doing an amazing job, obviously, there leading the boys. We're obviously big fans of the national team, and we want you guys to qualify, and we understand how tough it is. But going on to our quick fire questions, because we don't want to keep you for too long. Before actually we go into the quick fire ones, do we expect or can we expect to see you in Australia anytime soon?
Not anytime soon,
I guess. Will you play for a team in Melbourne?
Oh, listen, mate. I just signed a new deal here in the first few months of this season, so well and truly tied to some Pauli in Hamburg for the time being. But listen, you never know what's going to come, and the fact that I've never played in the A-League has always felt strange to me because of my relationship to football in Australia and the national team, and the fact that I'm probably one of the only players currently that has never done it. And it is interesting to me, that's for sure, and I would love to be a part of, as I try to do with the PFA and as in the national team, and everything I do to keep the game, to grow the game at home. And if that chance ever led to actually playing there, then we'll see how that develops. But at the moment, just trying to keep my team in the Bundesliga for the time being, and then we'll see what happens.
We'll give him a club. We'll say, you can own this club if you come back.
Own it.
Okay, now bring out the big guns.
I am a dictator now. That's it. I'm only coming back if I own it.
Exactly right. Well, no, you know what? To be fair, I reckon you are probably one of the only ones, apart from the actual Scottish lads, Suda and maybe Boyle, they've never stepped foot in Australia, let alone played in the A-League. But let's go to these quick fire questions, and then we'll let you go. Most memorable moment of your career?
World Cup, Qatar.
Yeah. Best player you've played with?
I have to say Aaron Moy.
Wow.
Huge. You're not the first person to say that, by the way.
Yeah.
Best player you played against?
Messi.
That's an easy one.
Yeah, it's an easy one.
Best advice for young footballers out there?
Find your own path. Don't think that there's a set one. It's different for everybody.
Awesome. Best stadium you've played at?
I'll say between Celtic Park and Borussia Dortmund.
Not too bad stadiums there at all. And then the last one is two five-a-side teams, 5 players on one team that you've played with, and then on the other side, 5 of your dream players.
Ooh, okay. Do I get to play for my team?
Yeah, you can play. If you think you're good enough.
Yeah, well, I'm absolutely not, but I'll be in there anyway. Let's go. All right. So in goals, I've got to put Maddie in goals. And then I'll go Jared Bowen. I'll do all the defending. I'll just stay at the back.
Yeah, don't worry.
I'll go Jared Bowen, Aaron Moy. Jeez, that's a tough one. That is a tough one. I'll go Harry Wilson and and it's got to be Tim Cahill up front. It's got to be, I think.
Yeah, wow. Did you play with Andy Robertson?
No, he left as I came. He went. Him and Harry Maguire left as I came in.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, what about the dream five-a-side? This is the one I'm more interested to hear.
Oof. All right. Against I didn't do a goal.
We've seen your vintage kits. Some of the players that you've got on some of the back of your vintage kit surely got to be making this team.
Yeah. There's gonna have to be a couple. All right. Let's go. In goals, Manuel Neuer, Virgil van Dijk, Messi, Haaland, Rooney.
Oh wow!
There we go.
Very English or EPL, strong EPL team there. A lot of players that have been England influence, I'm going to say.
Yeah. Well, man, I could have gone a couple of. I could have gone one of the Bayern guys in there, but yeah. Actually, Van Dijk was Scotland. Actually, when I was playing for Ross County, and he was at Celtic. But
sure.
Yeah, Van Dijk. But then the others were very much England and international. That's for sure.
Well, we really appreciate you taking the time. I think we said it before, I think you came on probably the biggest get we've got on here, so we really appreciate it. Keep on, I guess, succeeding in everything that you do. Obviously, you found the right place to be, and that, comes with when you're happy off the field. Normally you play well on the field, and those two things seem to be going extremely well for you. We'll be watching out, obviously, cheering for you when you're with the national team or St. Pauli. Hopefully those results, this Christmas break's come at a good time and you can get some results on the other side of Christmas, because, it would be great for the club to stay up in the Bundesliga. The story of you guys is amazing, and we really appreciate your time.
Legends, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate you.
What a top chat that was. Obviously, he's a superstar, really. What he's doing at the moment on the field is amazing, but he's a great guy, obviously very generous with his time. He's on Christmas break at the moment and was good enough to join us. But I just loved, hearing the journey, and even for a player that, if you're looking at the current Socceroos squad, probably with the best CV or best career, and he still has had his ups and downs. And it just goes to show every single footballer, no matter what level you get to, you have those peaks, but you also have those troughs, and there's hard moments in there.
Yeah, no, I think that's something that, probably a lot of people behind the scenes, as we talk about a lot of the times with players, is they don't see that. If you're a fan or someone that's just watching the game, you see their Instagram, you see, when their highlights come up, but you don't see the 6 months leading up to that highlight. And obviously Jacko, especially in COVID and that 9-month period without playing a game, you get treated like you're a piece of meat in this industry sometimes. And it's not nice. Like at the end of the day, it's not nice, but also you go from, a guaranteed salary to then no money. Obviously, you've hopefully put some aside and you haven't spent every last cent, but still, it's very hard to kind of wrap your head around that, because you're also like, well, fuck, where do I live now? Because I'm not, he's living in Hull, but he's obviously not English. His missus is from there, which probably helped. But you're like, well, do I move back to Australia? Do I stay here? Do I go to Scotland? Like it's a really difficult time for a player, and I'm very happy that obviously things worked out for him, and where he's ended up at St. Pauli is amazing. And for me, the highlight was hearing about Hertzler. Like I would have loved to have gone a little bit more into that, but I think we almost needed to get onto the St. Pauli chat earlier, because that could have just kept going. And you see, though, he's a young manager, and I think the reason why he's obviously had this success is because he gets everyone to buy in, and the new modern managers are very much like that. Yes, tactics are so important, but if you can get your players to buy into what you're trying to do and kind of, I think, have that approach that their voice is just as important as the manager's voice, and they can have an opinion. Players then are like, okay, fuck, this guy actually cares about me, and he cares about us as a group. And you could see, obviously, by them getting promoted, it obviously helped the club, helped the team, and now he's gone over to Brighton, which is just part and parcel of the game. But the spirit, I'm sure, and what he created at that club is still there. So. No, it was an amazing chat, and maybe we'll have to get him on after the Socceroos qualify for the next World Cup, and then he can talk about that celebration.
Yeah, I think there's honestly so many highlights. That's why it is great to hear from players that are at the top level, because you get those little insights, and for everything that he's been through, the experiences. That's what when you maybe become a coach one day, to take that in, even working with these guys like Postecoglou, like Hertzler, all these little bits that you can grab from these, great managers, and then take that into your own one day. So we didn't even get to touch on, life after football for Jacko and what that might look like. But at the moment, he's absolutely flying. So yeah, it was a top chat, and I hope you guys at home all enjoyed it. Obviously, we want to keep bringing the best guests that we can possibly get. We're doing the best with our network that we've got as players, but we want to make sure that we can keep doing it. So make sure you guys follow the pod. It means a lot if you guys can get behind us and support what we're doing, so we can keep trying to make it as best product as possible for you guys. So make sure you're following us on @FootballFriendsPod on Insta and TikTok, @Ben&Steph Pod on X, and Football Friends with Ben and Steph on YouTube. We love hearing from you guys. So hope you enjoyed that episode, and we'll see you guys on Monday.
Thanks, guys, and tune in to all the A-Leagues action this weekend. We'll see you very soon.